October 23rd, 2000. We're flying at about 300 to 400 feet elevation at 60 to 70 miles per hour. The time is 1500 hours. We're on a falling tide and we're flying westward along the north coast of Nova Scotia. You can see this part of the coast is more rugged, bedrock controlled, mostly steeply dipping carboniferous rocks. The only beach development is small beaches, sand, boulder size, and there's only a few dwellings, residences along this rugged part of the coast. You can see access is farther inland to these locations.
Just coming up in the view below that house is a better beach, much more sandy. It's much wider, and the cliff in the back is more stabilized with vegetation.
We've just gone by Macaris Brook, and as you can see, the relief is more subdued, and there's a wider beach on the east side of this bedrock outcrop.
Heading along this section of the coast, the relief is starting to decrease again. It was about a 10 to 15 meter cliff in the back shore. The bedrock along parts of the base. There you can see some of the bedrock exposed in the headland. The rock ramp, and pocket beaches between them are anywhere from sand to cobble size. Some of the material is probably derived from the cliffs, and the rest is from along shore. But as you come up further along the shore, you'll see that towards Moydart, the rock outcrops are extending offshore like natural groins and trapped in the sediment. The cliff in the back shore is decreasing. Probably only about 3 to 5 or 6 meters. It's in this area where you get these natural groins built along shore. There you can see some bedrock ramping on the far side of the headland. And then in between is a sand beach, more riprap in front of that guy's cottage. And here, all along here, you see the bedrock extending offshore at an oblique angle to the shore, sort of maybe west-east. We're actually coming up to Lismore. There was some glacial fluvial deposits, I guess, just back there. I didn't see them, but you might be able to pick them out later on. As you approach Lismore, there's much more sand deposits, better dune development in the back shore. And as you approach the harbour mouth, which will be coming into view in a second, there's quite an extensive riprap defending the mouth of the harbour. Actually, a little tidbit of information, Lismore is one of the oldest Catholic churches in Pictou County, built in 1834. And I'm not sure if we can pick it out, but oh yeah, we just went by it. Other thing is that there's some peat deposits been dated around here by the Geological Survey at about 11,900 years, and I assume they're above the rock platform. And we're flying about 300 feet. See the bedrock extending offshore, almost parallel to shore now rather than oblique. Sort of protects the beach in behind, which tends to be more sandy where there is a beach. The cliff is more erosional coming into view, a little bit higher, probably 15 meters or more. You can see slump blocks coming down the slope. And the beach is mostly sandy. Although, like you say, in this picture right here, there's more boulder at the base, probably bedrock exposed right at the base of the cliff. A lot of cottages all along this shore. The beach is getting much wider now. It's very sandy. There's some pebble at the top of the beach, just in front of the cliffs, and the cliffs are erosional, and again they're much higher, getting up over 15 meters, I would guess, in places. There's a large turbid plume of silt in the water offshore all along here, so I can't really see the nearshore deposits. But we're coming up on Galt Pond. Galt Pond, there's actually a youth camp on the other side of it, between it and the next pond, Patterson's Point. This pond is closed off at the moment. You can see it's a wide sand beach. There's a large washover area at the inlet that's closed off at the moment, and flood tidal deposits in behind. There's marsh vegetation around the inner part of the pond. And then between it and the next pond is a cliff which is erosional, probably 8 to 12 meters high. And then another wide sand beach in front of the next pond, or Barishwa. The back shore is a well-developed dune. There's a bit of a track behind it, vehicle track. It's all sand, it's closed off, and it seems fairly permanent. And we're just coming up into Merrigomish Harbour, I believe. Yeah, coming up to the isthmus or Tombolo that joins Big Island Beach to the mainland. And as a result, because there's a road that joins the island, it's had to be protected by riprap over the years. There's been fences of various kinds, and you'll see some of the remains of that in a minute. It's a very narrow spit, actually an old barrier that extends all the way along this section right up to the island, where you get to much more multiple beach ridges, and you'll see those in a minute. Just coming into the foreground now, the beach has turned quite sandy. There's the old fence that used to protect the road that's fallen apart now, and a bit of riprap in behind. The sand appears to be a little bit wider along this section, and then it gets narrow again where you see a newer fence that's deteriorating in condition as well. There you can just... Now as we leave the narrow spit, it's pretty well all sand along here, but we're going to enter into this area of large beach ridge complex. I took a slide of that. There's multiple ridges. I don't have a date on how old they'd be. Again, it's probably in the order of 2,000 to 3,000 years old. They're all dune ridges, probably on top of beach ridges. And as you approach Big Island, the beach ridges pinch out because they've been fed mainly from a west to east transport of sediment. You can see there's an old, just come in here, channel that extends from the marsh and multiple beach ridge complex into the lagoon behind. As you come onto the island, the sand beach decreases in width, the dunes decrease in number. There's a few craters and blowouts just coming into view now. Just at the end of the road there, you'll see them. And as you come out onto the outer island, you switch into a bouldery cobble boulder beach, more bedrock exposures and wave cut platform, and behind that is a cliff, which is a mixture of both bedrock and probably glacial material. It's a little dark to see in the picture, but I'll just describe it. It's mostly a bedrock platform. It's broken up into blocky remnants. There's a bit of glacial material, probably 3 to 5 meters over top of the bedrock. And in places there's promontories of bedrock ramps sticking offshore. And in the hollows between them there is a sand cover over some of the bedrock. The back shore is, it gets up to 20 meters, but in this case I think it's probably 10 to 12 meters high, treed. There are a few farms and houses farther back of the coast. In this embayment, the east side is mainly all bedrock and boulder. The west side is more sandy, so you got a bit of a pocket beach between the rocky headlands. The time right now is 15:11 GMT time, and we're flying at 400 feet. It's October 23rd, year 2000, and we're just approaching the west end of Big Merrigomish Island. Detail the beach is a mixture of bedrock exposures on the headlands, broken up though. It's fairly weathered. To sand pocket beaches with a bit of pebble in places. At the base of this cliff is a sand beach. It's pretty well covering a lot of the bedrock. So we get to the end, just where we're seeing now, there's more bedrock exposed, and just around the corner, there's more bedrock before we switch back into a wide sand beach. There's a bit of a bluff behind. I'm told there's exposures of glacial material up to 20 meters high at the end here. Just layers of silt and sand. As we come into the entrance to Merrigomish Harbour, quite a strong current flowing in right now. Like I said, 1513. At the end of the island, there's some bedrock exposures with glacial material over top. The scarp in the background is about 5 meters high. The beach itself is sort of caught between the bedrock exposures. It's sand cover, but with some coarse material. And then as you head into around Merrigomish Point and towards Savage Point, which is a recurved spit, you get a great view of sediment deposition on the inward side of the channel. We're going to fly to Savage Point. There's fairly good dune development there because there's much more sand. We're going by Savage Cove, and it's bordered by this sandy spit that's building around the corner towards Big Merrigomish Island. There's a bit of a channel that's been kept open beside it, and then there's shallower water that fringes these islands on the backside of Savage Cove and Merrigomish Big Island. It's fairly shallow all along this section of the near shore. Appears to be maybe eelgrass, mostly in the bottom, muddy. There seems to be some pretty large scour marks as well from boats grounding. The beach itself is poorly developed. It's a mixture of sediment. There's some erosional cliffs in the back shore you see now. Not very high, probably about 3 meters or so. And we'll cut across Cameron's Cove. But you can see that most of the headlands are eroded glacial material and some bedrock at the base of them, especially in a minute on the other side of Cameron's Cove. But the beach at the head of the cove is a very low gradient, probably sand and mud with a lot of vegetation. Just going by Smasham Head it is, I think. And then going on by the Big Islands, which lie behind Big Merrigomish Island. Maybe a series of drumlins that lie along here, making up the headlands. You see a power line going across the Merrigomish Island. Went by it. Several birds in the embayment. There's some aquaculture in the background in the behind Pig Islands. Not sure what it is, but there is some pens in the water. The shoreline along here is a mixed sediment, low gradient. There's some little tiny flanking spit, like the one coming into view. It's curved in by local waves.
Just flying by Robinson Point, you can see the flanking spit at the end of it. And looking across the Pig Islands, there's a series of small islands joined by areas of sediment accumulation, where many of the channels and small embayments have been infilled by sediment as well as marsh and wetland vegetation. You see the main part of the islands, there's a little bit more relief. It's still under 15 meters. And the shoreline at the back of this larger Pig Island is much smoother, better beach development, sand, probably cobble-sized material. The back shore may have some erosional bank. Looks like maybe the white is vegetation, like kelp or eelgrass accumulations. And at the far end of Pig Island, you can see two small embayments which have been nearly enclosed by sediment accumulation and a small flanking spit at the end. You can just see how shallow it is. Over at Big Merrigomish Island and the beach ridges that join it to the mainland, you can see the seaward ridges are higher, a lighter color. The landward ridges are lower and separated by many lakes.
Fairly sandy mud. Looks like they're still prograding a bit. Sort of ridge and runnel topography in the back of the beach. Tide's coming down right now. Just swing around the end of Big Island Merrigomish Spit, and we'll just sort of hover around, and you'll get an idea of the how narrow the spit is. But as you come across into the next part of the Merrigomish Harbour, you see again there's a lot of development. There's a campground just below us with trailers. A very extensive marsh in lower Barney's River area. And this inner part of Merrigomish Harbour is mostly low cliffs, glacial material. The foreshore is a low gradient mixed material, mostly sand and mud though. Starting to see more flats at low tide now, extending out from these small streams that enter into Merrigomish Harbour. In fact, the low gradient nature of the whole shoreline, this inner shoreline, is starting to show up. We're just going up to Kerr Point, which is near Brownsville on Highway 245, and you can see like some of the islands is probably less than 15 meters, probably about 10 to 12 meters high cliff with a coarse beach at the base of it, just locally derived material. Then on the far side of it there's a marsh, pretty extensive marsh, closed off with a small dune and sand beach.
Looking across in the area of Brownsville at the back of Merrigomish Harbour, the shoreline's intermittent eroded cliff. Most of the till looks like some slumping at the end of this cliff, some residences, and the embayments a much wider intertidal flat with localized beach development.
Just in the foreground there's some, looks like artificial groins that have been built at one time or another, sticking out from the headland. There used to be some boat ramps as well. In this section there's several streams that empty into Merrigomish Harbour. You see little floodplains and deltas at the mouth of them. It's going by Finley's Island, I believe it's called. Finlayson's Island. Finlayson's Island, yeah. And on the far side of it is an interesting sort of spit complex. I know some of it might be artificial because there's a wharf on the far side. And as you come up to the narrow part of Merrigomish Harbour between the island and the mainland, called Hardwood Point. Our time is 15:24. We're flying at 400 feet at about 70 miles per hour. More marsh in this embayment. Back the shore itself is mixed sediment. There's a bit of dune grass in the back shore before you hit the road, and then there's a marsh. Coming around this headland, we get back into a little straighter section of shoreline. The channel seems to follow right along the edge of the shore. In the foreground we've got a sand flat. There's some maybe bedrock at the corners, but it's certainly coarse substrate. And then the embayment itself was a finer material. Coming up on this headland, which is sort of the headland to the French River, which empties out into here. There's a bit more relief, treed backshore. to 10 meters maybe. There's a well-defined channel that comes out of French River and goes right across over to Olding Island, I guess it's called, and then swings eastward. Okay, down in the western corner of Merrigomish Harbour, the shoreline continues to be low gradient, sand flat, marsh or wetland vegetation at the top of the beach, and each one of the little headlands has sort of a mixture of anywhere from boulder to down to mud-sized material. This next headland appears to have a bit more relief, probably 15 meters. Several large houses built on top. The beach itself is a mixed, looks like almost bedrock to sand size, and each one of the embayments is marsh covered. As we approach the far west end of Merrigomish Harbour, there's actually a train crossing, railway crossing at the head of it with an extensive marsh in behind it. You'll see that in a few minutes. But leading up to it, the shoreline is all pretty much the same. It's a low gradient vegetated shore with a backshore cliff. It's partially stabilized with trees up to probably 5 to 10 meters. We'll just swing around now and you can see the railway bridge and the large marsh at the head of the harbour. It's Sutherland's River that empties into here. We're looking at still part of the mainland at the west end of Merrigomish Harbour, but we're soon going to pass over onto the number of islands that are situated throughout the harbour. This is coming up to be, I think, Muleless Island